Um, so, I suppose you're wondering who is the first guest. Well, I already gave it away actually just a few minutes ago in the food porn post that I put up. It's Mark Sisson, and I wanted to do something a little bit different rather than talk about health, nutrition, diet, exercise, so on and so forth. I wanted to talk about Mark. Wanted to talk to Mark about his business. Really, to my mind, he's the first of the paleo slash primal folks to have actually put together a viable business around this phenomenon, and I wanted to talk to him about that. So, without any further delay, let's just get going. We're on record. So, hi. This is Richard Nikoley, Free the Animal, and to my left, actually way to my left, about a few hundred miles down the Pacific coast, is my first guest for this new kind of thing I'm doing. Don't know how long it'll last, but Mark Sisson, you all know him, Primal Blueprint. Well, if you're a guy who just came in here for the first time, then maybe you don't. So what we want to do is have Mark tell you who he is for a few seconds.
Oh, you're leaving it up to me, Richard.
Yes,
okay,
right.
All right.
Dump it right off to you.
I'm just a guy who has been interested in health and fitness his entire life since a very early age. Was a national class runner, triathlete for a number of years. Beat myself into the ground, into a pulp, training as hard as I could, trying to do the right thing, trying to do all the accumulate all the miles and eat all the high carbohydrate foods. I retired from competition, got into business in various and sundry different applications, but wound up in the last 15 years really getting involved in the health and fitness industry. I have a supplement company. I have been an educator all along. I've written several books on really specific training protocols, and then most recently with Mark's Daily Apple, the blog that I do on a daily basis, and my book, The Primal Blueprint, have really taken this concept of evolutionary fitness, of combining evolutionary biology and modern genetic science to what I think is a new level. How's that, Richard? Is that a suitable intro?
And that's perfect, because that's what I want to talk about. Because the thing is, you blog, I blog, all these people out there blogging. I mean, this is going to be Paleo Primal Ev Fit Day. We can touch on low carb if we want to, but let's have a moment to ourselves. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to do today is talk about this new phenomenon. I mean, low carb, definitely there are allies. I mean, guys like Jimmy Moore, come on, he's such a sweetheart who has helped so many of us.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. But I think it's time. I think it's time to get out there and start doing some things for ourselves. And you have spearheaded that, and in a real business sense. And really, so that's really the topic of our conversation today. Is you have turned this into a business, but I think it's a little bit different than the typical internet fare.
Well, I hope so. I mean, when you talk about turning it into a business, for sure. I mean, I've been a businessman all my life. I've been an entrepreneur. I've done a lot of things that have been reasonably successful. I even tried my hand at day trading and lost my ass, I must say. So that didn't work.
Welcome to the club.
I've had my share of failures. But this, to me, and I tell my kids this. My daughter is now in college. My son is in high school and thinking about what school he wants to go to. And I tell my kids, I really didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up until I was 45. Mm-hmm. So my process throughout my entire life and career was one of being an athlete, and then getting involved in sports administration. I got involved in the anti-doping movement. I was very instrumental in writing the drug testing rules for the sport of triathlon and adjudicating all of the positive tests. I've been involved in performance enhancement from the illegal side as well as from the legal side with supplementation. And I've also been very interested in extracting the most, getting the most I can out of my life. And that means enjoyment, positive stuff, satisfaction. My life for so long was about pain and suffering and sacrifice and discipline and all these things that I thought I needed to have in order to be successful. And it turns out that wasn't the case. And as I've gotten older and wiser, I've found that I've built this little business, and it's a little business, with Mark's Daily Apple and with my new book that now combines, in my estimation, I have the perfect life because I've been married 20 years to the same woman. I've got great kids. I've got a little company that runs very well, and I get a chance to espouse my lifestyle to tens of thousands of people on a daily basis. And so I feel like this is the highest iteration of what I can do, which is to educate people and make a living while I'm doing it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Now, going back to what you said on your introduction, I just wanted to throw this in here that it's funny that for me it's like the guy who lost a lot of weight having a conversation with the guy who never had to lose any.
I get it, and I feel your pain in that regard. Except I'm the guy who tried to put muscle on and couldn't do it. So everybody's got their little demon and their little whatever hurdle they've got to overcome. I mean, I tell people that we all have these disabilities. Some of them are self-imposed. Some of them we just bring on ourselves, and they have no basis in reality. We just imagine them.
Yeah.
Others are very real. But mine are real for me, and yours are real for you. So I guess where you're going with this is what can I tell people who have struggled to be lean and fit and happy and healthy for their whole lives and have not had success. Right. What I can tell you is that, and just like I referenced the day trading thing, and I just want to make light of that, there are some people who know how to make money, and everything they do in life just seems to click with, they make money here, they make money there, they make money in real estate, they set up these businesses, blah, 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 do all this stuff, and they go, wow, how do you do that? Where's that mentality come from? And yet those same people are often people who struggle with what I think is simple. How do you lose weight, have more energy, build muscle, and do all this stuff? Right. So there's like these different mindsets, and I have to say that while I'm not one of those people I just described about everything turns to gold, I am one of those people who I think has the whole health and fitness thing dialed in.
Yeah.
And it's not just because I was an athlete, but I have a unique combination of skills where I got my degree in biology. I was pre-med. I was involved in this anti-doping movement for a long time. I've developed supplements for 15 or 20 different companies, many of which you've heard of. Mm-hmm. I've got a very eclectic
some surprises too.
Yeah.
We talked about that in email.
Yeah, a very eclectic background, and I think it all comes together in what I call a unique perspective on how we can, and my goal is to show people how easy life should be. It should not be about pain and suffering.
You actually alluded to that previously in Who is Mark Sisson, and talking about you thought you had to go through life with the pain, no gain, and
right.
beating yourself up. Isn't it kind of all just different applications on the same kind of theme that kind of has its root in agriculture and civilization and centralization and power structures?
Well, I don't know where you're going with this, other than what I'm sort of hearing is that if we go down this road about humanity and the development of humanity and civilization was contemplated to make our lives easier.
Right.
That it was contemplated to ease the burden and create a greater chance of survival and make life more comfortable, so we had shelter on a frequent basis rather than once in a while, that we had all the food we needed whenever we wanted, that we could raise lots of kids instead of one. And I agree that maybe that's what the original, that's the direction it headed in originally, but where we find ourselves now is a gross perversion of that, where I'm talking to you over the airwaves, and you're up in Northern California, and I'm in Southern California, and at some point there's going to be thousands of people watching this, and I'm checking my email on the break here with my BlackBerry, and I'm going to go home and choose which of the 500 channels I'm going to watch on TV, and I'm going to open my refrigerator and hopefully not eat some kind of processed glop that's available at a moment's notice. So
Right.
you know, we've created a perverse situation where, on the one hand, you know, it is man's intent, I think, to be hedonistic and to make his life more enjoyable, and we can talk about Maslow's hierarchy and so on. On the other hand, we've sort of created this mess for ourselves, which manifests itself, at least from my perspective, largely in the physical domain, because the availability of foods and the you know, the availability of a chair to sit on. I'm not squatting to talk to you right now. I'm sitting in a chair, which for 2 million years we didn't have chairs to sit on, and all these things have sort of conspired with us and against us to make our lives, in some regards, miserable. And so, I think
Chapter 2.
Yeah.
Chapter 2. The corks.
The corks.
We'll get to the book. We'll get to the book. But but that chapter, I think, is worth the price. The way you laid out I mean, it was a person can't read that and not identify with so many things, either in the past or the present or even now. And I think to some extent, you know, it's not like you want to throw all the conveniences away, but it's more about management and contrary to I think like the training that you were talking about before, where you beat yourself up and it's misery. What you do is you replace it with so much good stuff, so much uplifting stuff, that the perversions become manageable down to almost an enjoyable, convenient level.
Exactly, and you know, where I take this with most with lifestyles is, you know, we assume that we're not supposed to sleep that much because, you know, we're missing out on life's enjoyment, and you know, people brag about getting by on 5 or 6 hours, and I used to do that, you know, and now all of a sudden I revel in the fact that, God, this is fantastic. I get 9 hours of sleep, not feel guilty about it, and know that I did something good for myself.
That is, you know, it's funny. I think it's one of the things that's not talked about enough on the Paleo blogs, though it is talked about some. It's certainly it certainly has gotten attention. But yeah, I used to be an average 5 to 6 hour a night sleeper, and now
well, and if you're day trading, you know, you're getting up at 5.
Not only that, but if I happen to wake up at 3, I could not go back to sleep until I got up and checked the international markets, because they were already open, right, to see how they're doing, right? So it was just it was a bad cycle. I must have gained the last 10, 20 pounds during that 2-year phase. But so let's talk about the book, because you chose to write this and self-publish it. So tell me a little bit what about the writing process. How much time did you have to spend a day? How long did it take you? So on and so forth. I want people to get a sense of what is it. You know, if anyone out there wants, and you know, I think you and I both agree that there's a lot of room for a lot of people to get involved in this from even a business standpoint, and all it's going to do is raise all boats, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the writing process for me began, to make a long story less long, I used to be involved in television quite a bit, in terms of I sponsored these health talk shows, and that's sort of how I started my company. When television got so expensive and less effective as a means of disseminating information and selling product, I decided to do my own TV show. I figured I could create content less expensively and distribute it and control the content. So I did, about 4.5, 5 years ago, I shot 52 half-hour episodes of a live health talk show, and I paid for the time on Travel Channel. And ran it for about 2 months and lost my shirt. It was something that I'll never regret doing, because it was always there for me to do. But I realized, you know, because I had intended for it to be a syndicated show, I thought that I had enough content that some syndicator will want to pick this up.
Chalk it up to tuition.
But yeah,
chalk it up. Always say.
Yeah. So and anyway, and I'm glad I did it. But what happened as a result of that was, I saw that the internet was a way to create content inexpensively, and I'm very, if I do say so myself, I'm good at creating content.
Yes,
so
you are.
We decided, my company and I had some people working with me at the time, and we said, rather than doing the TV thing, let's start this blog. So about 4 years ago, we started Mark's Daily Apple with the intention of, it was sort of a hobby, still is, and it was a way to put my philosophies, my ideas out there. And I thought, by the way, I thought as I started it, I'm going to vow to do a post every day, something interesting every day, because really blogging is about.
You kind of locked yourself into it with Daily Apple.
There you go, and so good news, bad news kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought when I started it, well, after about a year, I'll probably run out of things to say. Well, a year into this, all it did was open up more and more avenues of exploration. Probably the main thing about Mark's Daily Apple that's been most gratifying to me is this sense of community. And over the years, we've gone from a few hundred to, it's probably the largest blog of its kind in the internet right now. And, I have the luxury of, when I put something out there, I have people who can come back and say, you're full of crap, or justify your position, or would you consider rethinking this? And so over the years, I've used it as kind of a personal wiki to hone my philosophy, and I'm eternally grateful for that. And that would not have happened 10 years ago in any in any sense of the imagination. So within about a year and a half of doing this, now we've developed this strategy, this life strategy, and now clearly it's become fodder for a book.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, as you know, in the blogosphere, is you can pour your heart out and bust your butt writing the greatest single blog piece ever written, and then 3 days later, when it scrolls off the page, it's basically gone forever. Unless somebody decides to come to your site and read the archives, and or somebody Googles it, and thank God for Google search.
Yeah.
And so, at any rate, I decided that was the time to organize all of these thoughts into a book, and that's sort of what became the genesis for the Primal Blueprint.
Right.
And what happened was I started writing it, and I have an editor who writes with me, and tossing ideas back and forth, and so it was about a year and a half process. And as with most books, it was written in 6 months, but it took another year of editing and polishing and going back and refining and finding all of the holes and trying to fill it in, because it was, to me, this was a business proposition that I wanted to put out into the world a cohesive, very understandable version of like what Gary Taubes had written. And I love Good Calories Bad. You want to get that?
I don't even know where it is. It's off now.
Okay.
It sounded like it was coming from, sorry about that. So
I mean, I think Taubes has written probably the greatest book in the history of scientific exploration with regard to nutrition.
Problem is, it's not that accessible for the average guy.
And I think he might even agree to that.
Yeah,
so I wanted, and I had a lifeway that included a lot of other aspects of living. And when we wrote the whole Korg lifestyle thing, and by the way, that almost didn't make it into the book, because in my mind, I was thinking, well, do people really want to read, this little thing? And, is it necessary, or is it superfluous? And it turns out it was probably
the most powerful.
Yeah, it was.
Really.
It was fairly
powerful. I mean, because it kind of goes back to the old, it kind of goes back to the old, punishment and pain and gain and everything. You have to show someone where they're really at.
Yeah.
And then you show them the better way, right?
Yeah.
And that really, I think it's got to connect with people, because there's so many people who just are out there, that just pounding themselves into the ground day after day after day with the work. I mean, here in the northern Bay Area, and I'm sure down there in Southern California, you remember back before our enormous property values got less enormous.
Yeah.
People would, because they wanted a nice big house, they would go out and buy one 2 hours away, and then they're doing that commute. They're spending 4 hours a day in the car, listening to books on tape. I guess, I don't know. What
you hope.
Doing.
Yeah.
I always said I'd live in a studio before I would ever do something like that. I never would.
Yeah, so I mean, it was an eye opener for me as you sort of put yourself in the mindset of a typical family trying to do the right thing, and that's really
Yeah.
important because I think people do want to.
Oh,
They want to do the right thing, but it's been so frustrating because they haven't known what the right thing is. And
right.
and this goes back to what I said originally. Everybody assumes that the right thing must involve pain, suffering, sacrifice, discipline, calorie counting, portion control, weighing, and all these things that we've, seem to fit into the Puritan work ethic or something.
Yes.
And
That's
when
what I was getting to a while ago.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so when I'm
Yeah.
uncovering all these things, that what a mind bender it is to realize that you don't have to work out as much as everybody said you had to work out to be even fitter and even healthier.
Even healthier.
That you don't have to you don't have to weigh out or block out your carb blocks and protein blocks and fat blocks, or put them in Tupperware and carry them around with you all day. How freeing it is for me to tell you that all you need to know is here's a big list of foods that you can eat from whenever you want, as much as you want, as long as you don't eat from this list. And by the way, the foods in this list are pretty darn good tasting.
Yeah.
So, it becomes my task, as I see it, is to inform people how easy life can be and how enjoyable and fun and effective. And we have a term we use here all the time called digging a hole to put the ladder in to wash the
Yeah,
windows.
love that one.
So we find a way, we seem to in society
We just
find
want to work harder.
a complex solution for a simple problem
Yeah.
all the time, So anyway, so the book was, go ahead.
I was just going to say we kind of like to find ways to work harder just for the sake of saying it was hard work.
Oh yeah, badge of courage. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I was a marathoner. There was no money in it, and as I tell people in my talks now, I almost cried 3 years ago when I finally realized that after 20 years prior of being an endurance athlete, at no time from the time the gun went off until I crossed the finish line in any of these 300 endurance contests that I was in, at no time could I ever say, "Isn't this fun?"
Isn't this fun?
And that's a really sad commentary. I mean, Kobe Bryant's out there playing basketball. I guarantee he's having fun.
He's having fun.
He's working hard, but he's having fun. He's doing what he loves. So anyway, I mean, this is what sort of my message that I want to bring to the world is that there's an easy way to access all of these things that our genes are set up to do if we give them the right signal. So that was the nature of the book, and that's what I wanted to do. Now, I decided to self-publish for a couple of reasons. And if there are any authors out there who are thinking about self-publishing, I highly recommend that as the way to go. If you're a good writer and you produce something that people want to read, and if you believe very strongly in your message, and if you have about $25,000 that you're willing to invest in yourself.
Exactly. It's going to take some money.
If you don't have the money, then you look for a publisher, and you may or may not find one. And there are ways that you can self-publish, print on demand now, so you can do one book at a time. But that's I don't recommend going that route.
No.
I've done a couple of books. My first book was the Runner's World Triathlon training book back in 1982, so almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
It was a very successful book in that it sold 20,000 copies hardcover. Rodale Press and World Publications were very thrilled with it. I made about $12,000. Now, when I was in school, I didn't like writing. It was like my least favorite task, and it's still not my favorite task. I don't like writing.
Yeah.
I think I do it pretty well, but I don't. It's tough for me to roll up the sleeves and do it. So if I was going to write another book, it was going to be for a lot more than $12,000 and in 20,000 copies sold.
Right.
So I did another book back in the late 80s, a very really narrow niche book called Training and Racing Duathlons. It was about a sport it's called Run Bike Run, and it was a variation of triathlon. And I made a lot of money doing that, and it didn't, and I had fun, and didn't even sell that many copies. But when I say a lot of money, it was relative to those days.
Yeah.
So when this opportunity came along, and I've written several books since, this opportunity came along, and it was like there's no question I'm going to self-publish. And of course, with Mark's Daily Apple, I can also manage the distribution of this book, and that was huge for me. Even if I'd had a publisher, a major publisher, I'm not sure I would have been able to distribute the number of books that we've done so far.
And where are you at now?
I'm not going to say, but
Okay.
I will say but I will say that we're in our third printing of a hardcover book, which isn't even. It's not a year old yet. We're in Barnes and
Well,
Noble.
I think you did tell your readers that your first printing was 16,000.
Yeah. We're well past. The second printing was 20,000, so you can take it from there. So we're in our third printing right now. So yeah, no, and it's taking off, and I think it's just beginning to take off, because the problem with being a self-publisher is that you do not get the attention of the national media.
Right. For
some reason, they're beholden to the big institutional publishing houses. Go figure.
Which
right?
leads us into the Amazon push.
Yeah.
Now, I got to ask you, Mark, where did you get the balls to even think you could even look credible doing that?
I
mean, it could have.
I talked earlier. I talked earlier about
flubbed so badly.
Yeah, I talked earlier about the sense of community here, and
right.
And you mentioned earlier about this fact that there's room for all of us to play in this arena.
That's right.
And that's why I'm encouraging. There are people who are telling me they're writing their book now that has to do with a paleo style or a whatever variation on it. And I say, you know what, go for it, and I'll help you, because I think there's not enough information out there, and as many books as I've sold, I want to sell 1 million books. I don't want to sell a percent or two of that. So that's really if we're going to affect change in the world with what we know, and believe me, you and I, and Kurt and Jimmy, and we know really. We've got a secret that we want to let out to the rest of the world. My screen keeps going dark here. Sorry.
Mine too.
Yeah. So it's when I decided to do this Amazon campaign, I decided I'd call upon my blogger buddies, and so you were involved, and I've got probably 50 blogger buddies that agreed to go ahead and assist with this project. Because of the strength of my own blog, I put it up in advance. So it was a 6-week strategy that we plotted out, and there was a lot of work that went into it, but it was all contemplated to peak on this one day. I will tell you that it was the most amazing experience to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning on the 17th of March and see that we were at like 61 already. And it really hadn't even kicked in yet. And then we were getting up to, and by 10 o'clock in the morning we were at like 9 or 11. And I went to the gym to do a workout because I didn't want to hang out in front of my screen and keep refreshing it all day.
I know what you mean.
And I got back, and we're number 2.
Yeah.
Now I knew from having watched 60 Minutes the 2 days before that Michael Lewis had dropped his book, The Big Short, and there's really no competing with something like that. So I knew that number 2 was as high as me.
That was a bestseller too.
Yeah. But I also was quite pleased to see that we hung in at number 2 for almost 24 hours.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing was that Amazon didn't buy enough books to be able to have to fulfill regular orders. So by 3 o'clock that afternoon, it was already saying not available, or maybe may ship in 3 to 4 days, and then it was then a few hours, may ship in 2 weeks, and that scares buyers off. So if I had it to do over again, I'd be a little bit more adamant with my Amazon buyers. But by the same token, Amazon, if you have to think about Amazon, the buyer's sitting there going, here's this guy, says he's going to go climb the charts on Amazon, wants us to buy umpty-ump thousands of books. Last thing Amazon wants to do, because they're a just-in-time seller, they really only keep a few days inventory of most books. It's really very interesting how they do that. So I can see they didn't want to be, have thousands of books left over. So it was
long tail selling.
Yeah. So anyway, but thanks to people like you who were very helpful in putting the word out and amassing all of this great interest on this day. And then it had a snowball effect, because friends telling friends, or people were buying 4 or 5 books at a time. And what can I say? It's
I have to say, I got caught up in it. It was fun for me too, because like I said, like you alluded to, we do have, I've seen that I could talk about myself. Everybody knows about my own progress, but I have friends and family people I care about, people I see on a daily basis, where I've seen the changes in them. This is really real, and so the opportunity to push something like this to where the other friends and family who are like you know, once they start seeing other people talk about it, you know, that I suppose on a certain level we're all followers. So, you know, the more we get that buzz kind of going, so I was really into it, and I'd mentioned to several people, I think even on my blog, that I can't remember clicking refresh so many times since that nobody Ron Paul in the last election raised $16 million in one day. You know, and it was total grassroots. It was the same sort of thing. Okay, so let's wrap this up because I'm going to have to break this into several sections here. So now there's another book. There's the cookbook. Now, why wasn't that in the Primal Blueprint? Because people are going to say, well, why did you do 2 books?
Well, you know, it's interesting because some of the complaints that I've read about when I've seen other of these types of books go something like this. Well, it was, you know, 40 pages of content and then 200 pages of single-shot recipes, and that's not why I bought that book.
Right.
And I bought this book, and by the way, the Primal Blueprint was very much like Good Calories, was about 700 pages when we started. And we, you know, I had editors and everybody else come in and say, "That's you get, you know, you've got to." And then from a marketing standpoint, it had to be around 300 pages, otherwise people will not pick it up. And again, it was very clear to me that I wanted a book that was easy to read, easy to understand, got the point across, was backed up by science, had some anecdotes in it, and so I didn't really want to put the recipes in there. And so I feel sort of vindicated in my decision because I've gotten good feedback on that. And so the cookbook was sort of the first, you know, of the next generation of that Primal Blueprint category, which is now starting to become a brand. I mean, we had this Primal Con this past weekend up in Oxnard. It was fantastically successful.
I totally spaced out. I was going to ask you about that first because I was watching I saw all those pictures. You know, and I just loved it. And I thought, this is you have to rename it. I mean, conference just doesn't really do it justice because what I see is about a 4-to-1 ratio of practice to theory.
Oh, for sure. It was like summer camp for grown-ups, and everybody said that, and they had a great time, and they had some of the best primal food they ever had.
That was good looking.
Some people thought, yeah, you're a foodie, that's right. Some people thought, you know, that it was going to be sustainable kind of food for 3 days, and they were going to get by, and they were going to be, you know, lectures and all this other stuff. But the food wound up being a major highlight for a lot of people. Some of whom hadn't even read the book. And one woman showed up and she said, you know, I'm giving myself this as a gift. I'm going to turn, you know, umpty-ump years in a week, and I'm going to embark on this program, but I'm a visual person, so I had to come see what it was all about. So I think she got a good sense of that. Yeah. But anyway, so we have the Primal Blueprint. You know, was really imprinted on that Primal Con. We've got some other, you know, we've got a Primal Leap kit coming out in about 2 months, which is really a workbook and a real strategy for 30 days of, you know, if you really want us to hold your hand and take you through everything step by step. We've got that going. So the cookbook, and I'm very proud of it. It's like 400 plus color photos. So
That's
it's
amazing. And it's going to be a hardcover book.
Hardcover book, 400 color photos, over 100 recipes, and it really takes you from like
you don't get that many color photos in most cookbooks.
No. And this is about not only like what it should look like when it's finished, but the process. So what it looks like from the start, and here's what, you know, because a lot of times you read these ingredient lists or you read how to prepare them, you go, what are they talking about? What does that look like? So, and speaking of the woman who was the visual person, this is for visual people.
Yeah, I mean, even going, you know, I mean, the classic book of all time, Julia Child's, which I have. You know, it's like it's like, what is it? Black and white drawings in many cases. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So anyway, we're very you know, proud of the cookbook, and you know, Jennifer, my co-author on that, she's a professional chef, and I had all these ideas about what I wanted to try, and it turned out to be I think fabulous. So you tell me when you get your copy, Richard.
When will people have it on hand?
It looks like it's going to ship probably the second or third week in May.
Second or third week in May.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so any last thoughts, Mark?
No, really. This is our first face-to-face, Richard. We've exchanged a lot of emails, and good to hang out with you. We'll have to do this more often.
Yeah, I'll have to. We'll have to coordinate one of my Southern Cal trips. Or you've been up here twice, and I've been out of town both times. So
yeah.
All right, Mark. I will bid you farewell. All right, we'll see you, man.
All right,
Have
thanks.
a good
Take
one.
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.